Hey guys, I'm Boot. We're in New Jersey, and today we are back with another episode where we are going to first introduce our guest Kyle from Connecticut. Kyle, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you at?
What is going on? You can find me everywhere you get your podcast fix on your Anchor.fm, your Spotify's, your Apple Podcasts, and so forth. You can also find me on the platform known as Who They Want Entertainment, where we talk about anything and everything. We do everything a normal podcast does not. And if you want to check out some nerdy stuff, check out On the Brain ENT. And if you want to talk about mental health and everything else that's going on in this crazy world of ours, you can check us all out on A for Able on everywhere you get your podcast fix.
Right on. Also with us today is my wife and the sister of Gina, as I like to say. Allie, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm Allie. You can find me on YouTube at Allie S and TikTok Allie_Sams.
Right on.
I
Also
think.
today we have a also today we have a special guest. We have Beth in the house. Beth, say hi to everybody and let them know where they can find you.
Hi everybody. You can all find me on TikTok at BethCrazily5.
Right on. So today we are going to talk a little bit more about these 600-pound lies that have been pushed all over the place, and so we are going to jump in and just start asking random fire questions that we've gone over in previous episodes, as well as talk to Beth about her experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor off. Anybody want to start off? You have no mic, Kyle. Your mic is muted.
Technical difficulties. You're muted. Or maybe he just muted himself to figure it out.
Alma, check your battery.
I don't know why.
Okay.
That just
There you
was
go.
so funny.
Mic check 1, 2. All right.
Okay, now I can hear you. You're a little poor Kyle. All right, so I think the first thing that we talk about is her bathing, and we talk about how they made it like basically she only bathed once a month, and that she was incapable of bathing. Why do I feel like I said bathing? Take a shot if you hear me say bathing. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Edit that out, Keith.
Nope. It's staying in.
Yeah, so the bathing thing was like the first thing we talked about. That was the 12 seconds in mark from the first episode. What are your thoughts on that whole debacle?
Yeah, no, the bathing thing was absolutely not just once a month. She did eventually have to stop going upstairs, and she couldn't get upstairs. So, but she made it work with bathing, and then she would use the kitchen sink for her hair so that she could actually wash her hair. But it was not just once a month.
Yeah. Not to mention how many times the girl changed her clothes in a day.
Like 3 times a day.
Yeah, really. Wardrobe change.
Well, that was every time she was doing a YouTube video or a new TikTok or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And,
all right.
Okay, so I think the next thing we talked about was the timing of the show, that Gina didn't film for the year that they said she did. I think it was less than 4 months. So I think it was like 3.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I know that she wrapped her recording, like the script they made her read, on her birthday.
Yeah.
So it was probably more like probably 3 months, because they started in October, November, December.
They started like the middle of October. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The final airing was December, and then
you stopped filming right in December.
Yeah. Like,
that's what I thought.
We couldn't, like, the thing is, you can't, no holiday stuff up or whatever, so we couldn't even celebrate Christmas. It was messed up, but we then went on to the voiceovers.
Gotcha.
And that's when, like, they pretty much tell you what to put on the voiceover.
Yeah. Did she I remember her saying that she had to read from like a script.
Yeah. They handed her a page, and then had her go through it, and she would have to say it a couple of different times or a couple of different ways, and they would pick which way to put it in there.
Now, how did you guys feel when you saw the script and saw it wasn't like really fitting in with what was really happening?
Well, I kind of picked up on it maybe 2 months into it, that this really wasn't going to be what it was meant to be, because then, you're going to the doctor's office, and then the next time you're going to the doctor's office, it's either going to be more or less, but it's not in a natural period of length. It's like the next day or 2 days later that you're going back to the doctor's office, and you get 2 different readings, and they're really different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we kind of talked about that, like how they would say 2 months has passed when it would only be like a day or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is frustrating because, like if she had those full amount of time that they claim it is, she could have gotten to her goal to have surgery.
Right.
But they didn't give her that time. They didn't allocate that time for her. So
I think as well there was recently had come up in an episode that we talked about where Gina was sent home with diet pills.
yeah, that was the most recent one we recorded. I think she was sent home with mental health medicine from the first appointment with the doctor, and weight loss pills. And I don't remember the name of the weight loss pills, and I don't remember what medicine they put her on for her mental health.
Yeah, I don't remember those.
Yeah, I know she had a script. I don't know where I wonder if she throw out the book that he gave her that was autographed? She might have.
No, I don't think so.
Because I don't know where I'm sure, watch, I'll find it some
Yeah,
random.
it'll probably turn up.
Yeah, that'll be my luck. But yeah, we did talk about that. But Gina didn't like taking pills. She didn't like taking medicine.
Mm-mm.
And so that's why she didn't take those pills. But I think the next thing I have too is that all the food that she had to eat had to be approved by production.
Yeah.
Like Gina didn't eat 2 cheesesteaks, for an example. Or like how they made her be surrounded by like snacks. That was not Gina's vibe. Like,
Yeah, no.
I mean, she snacked, but
Yeah, and she would, but it wouldn't be like a whole ton of things around her either.
yeah.
And say for instance, like the cheesesteak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had her get the cheesesteak, but they made sure that there was extra, and then but also made it look like she ate all that.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it's kind of like Houdini did away, to make it look like she ate all of it, and she didn't. She couldn't. She didn't like eating in front of people. It gave her a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. I was surprised she was able to even put any food in her mouth when, they were in front of her with the cameras like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we talked about was, that we did have nightly meetings when they were shooting.
Yes.
To kind of talk things out and make sure, we were all in line with what happened that day. So we knew that it wouldn't get twisted. which unfortunately it still managed to end up getting twisted anyway.
Yeah.
Just because they, a lot of it was cut. A lot of the things that, were said were cut down to fit other conversations. One of those was a conversation that, they were talking about their dad. Something had happened. And
Are you talking about the conversation where they cut to my mom saying that Beth shouldn't do that to Gina?
Right.
Okay, they made
They made it look like it was part of another conversation.
No,
and
they
it
made
looked
it.
really crappy. Like, really.
They made it look
Yeah.
like we were pissed off, and Beth and I've had this conversation, that Beth didn't want to buy us food.
Oh, yeah.
In reality, the conversation that my mom and Gina were having for an hour that they made us film was about issues that Beth and Gina had in their marriage that were their issues. They made us talk about that for an hour.
Yeah.
And then took that conversation, didn't air it, but just took out the pieces that my mom and I said something in relation to Beth, and made it look like we were pissed that Beth didn't feed us or didn't want to feed us.
Right.
Yeah, they picked it apart and put certain things together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that you and Gina had marital issues in your marriage. It's not a place of blaming either person. You guys just had issues that equally were entangled, and they didn't show that. And when they tried to show it, they made it so stupid.
Yeah,
They
so
made it
fake.
about food, or that you took care of everybody and you were like the slave.
See, there was no taking care of everybody. I was taking care of Gina.
Of course.
And it's not like you make food just for Gina. You make food for the whole house.
Right.
So, and it's same with you, same with Keith, same with Mom.
Right.
Anybody made food, they would ask and make it for everybody. So it's not like it was just specifically me making food for everybody.
Right. But they painted it that way.
Yeah.
And then also too, I said this in an episode, why do we have to explain that? Families do that all the time. Like, people were so concerned about ordering food out. Like, why do we have to explain when we order food out as a family? Like, why do we have to explain that to somebody for them to understand? Like, people do that, but we're under a microscope because Gina was on a weight. I don't even want to call it a weight loss TV reality show, because it's like a fake.
It was a weight-focused TV reality show, because really they didn't talk about. They really didn't really show her at all exercising or trying to, anything that the doctor suggested was not shown, right? It wasn't shown. The most we got was the doctor appointment, the doctor appointments, and then the disappointed look on his face as he's explaining to her why he thinks she's just not wanting to do these things that he's asking her to do. So but none of that was shown. We just see food being eaten. We see you two talking for like a short little minute, and you like Beth, I gotta give you credit, because you were a trooper. Because when you would come through the door, right? I'm waiting for a laugh track to come through, right? I'm waiting for because now I'm thinking about it, this is set up like a freaking sitcom.
Oh, it really was.
Okay,
we stood outside. As a matter of fact, we were standing outside together for like a half an hour before I had to come in. And meanwhile, they had already gotten the food to the house. So Beth and I are standing outside, like, laughing at how stupid this is. We're getting chewed alive by bugs. I was only out there for about a half an hour. Beth was out there for like 3 hours, like, with this food. And by the time we got it, it was so fucking soggy and cold. It was just like the worst.
Disgusting.
But why would they expect you to eat it when they know that it's that it's cold in
Kyle, are
Continuity,
you new to
man,
this
continuity.
conversation?
No, I'm just
Now they want the whole show to show that she eats like in excess.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want you to believe, that every fat person eats the way that Gina ate in this version of the show.
we've been
Right.
talking about this for a good few weeks at this point.
Yeah.
And it just like it doesn't really baffle me that they fake the whole thing. But what does is they have the nerve to call themselves a weight loss show. Like my sister brought this to my attention. She used to watch The Biggest Loser, right? Yeah, that show we can say.
Yeah.
She used to watch The Biggest Loser, right? And and she noticed after a few seasons how fabricated it seemed and how messed up it was, how they would treat these people, right? So she stopped watching. And when I explained to her what we were doing, she brought that to my attention. Like, we both know a little bit about production, from that side, from our schooling, right? But you know how they get at people for false advertising,
Right.
Yeah.
but that's exactly what they did.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem that way to everybody, of course, but that's exactly what they did. They didn't get her help. They didn't get her on the path they thought they wanted her to be on. And we never got to see her doing anything positive outside of, like, you guys getting that bed. So
Right, and that's the thing too. Like, there was positive things. You were saying about exercising and doing what the doctor said. She did go outside of the complex and walk. We did take Bubba to the park and walk, and she walked Bubba. They didn't show that.
No. Along with all the other progress that she made on the trip. I mean, for somebody who had such agoraphobia and anxiety about leaving the house, moving to Texas and spending 5 days on the road,
Yeah,
that's a
it was
lot,
huge
man.
step.
Yeah, that was enormous, and they didn't show any of that.
Her even moving to Texas,
Yeah,
to be away from my mom and I, was like a huge, like, we talked about this with agoraphobia and exposure therapy. She had to have that exposure on a time that she wasn't in control of. She had to follow their scheduling, their way of things. So she had to constantly adapt as best she could to their schedule. And you know what? Out of the 5 days it took us to get there, they didn't show the progress that she even made on that long trip, or going on an elevator. That seems so minor to people, but that's a huge deal for Gina because she was terrified of elevators.
right.
And they just didn't show the whole picture. And I think that's where everybody's frustrated, at least the people that know Gina, that know her story a bit. Because not everybody knows Gina's whole entire story, probably, but like me, my mom, I don't know how much Gina shared with you, Beth, or you, Keith, or you, Kyle. But it's like a majority of us know enough to know that Gina struggled and she was facing a lot of her fears while filming this show. But going back to the things that we were talking about. I wrote liar, and I think it was, I don't know who I was saying was a liar, but I wrote liar. You see someone like this and you don't want to believe they could be anorexic. So I think that was directed towards the production crew or to people that have left relentless amount of comments of hate, is that nobody wants to believe at her size that she could have an eating disorder. They just will assume it's a binge eating disorder, an overeating disorder. Nobody wants to assume it's on the opposite side of the spectrum. So I think that was what that note was in reference to.
I blame the education system.
Yeah.
That's what we were taught. Now, whether they didn't have the the information because studies were still being done. But every time somebody would talk about anorexia, bulimia, and eating disorder, they'd always talk about it from a person who is, say, okay, I'm skinny. I would get, are you anorexic, a couple times in my life, right? I'm like, no, I just have a fast metabolism, which is the case, right? But every time somebody would talk about anorexia or bulimia, it would always be a malnourished, skinny person or someone who had lost a massive amount of weight very quickly. And when they would talk about bigger people, they'd mainly talk about overeating, not the lack of eating.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As if being a bigger person automatically makes you different as a human being.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I honestly, I go for the education system first, and then I blame the people with these preconceived notions just based on size.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to bring up something real quick here. So, Beth, what I want to talk about after the first visit, when Gina had first met the doctor, and and you guys were like coming off of that. What was the train of thought and the conversations you guys had after that? Like, what did it look like for her after that?
Well, I mean, it looked like at that point, like it was like weight loss was a possibility. They're BSing and throwing stuff at you, and you're thinking that it's still a possibility. But then you get so far, and it's all even more BS. Gets thrown at you.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes more of a, I don't think it can happen. I don't know what's gonna go on now. Like, we're stuck in this production. Now we have to finish it.
Right.
So
I think the first episode, or the first time she went to the doctor, I remember she was really like into it. You know what I mean? She was all about the book and all the things and getting into the diet. And I remember there was one scene in particular where she was asking you what there was to eat. And I think she was razzing on Kathy for not eating as well as she was supposed to be eating. But the alternative at the time, what was in the freezer, was turkey. What can you tell us about Gina and her relationship with turkey?
She loved turkey burgers. That was her main thing.
I think that was even before the show, right?
Yeah, even before the show, it was always turkey burgers. She loved turkey burgers.
And they made it kind of seem like, oh my God, turkey, whatever will I do? like she had never eaten turkey in her life.
Well, and they also made it seem like that she didn't know how to cook. I think the other big thing that was brought up was the sleeping arrangements. Because it was insinuated that Keith and I and my mom forced you guys to live downstairs, and we just took over your room and was like, well, screw them, they don't need a bedroom, and they have to sleep downstairs with my mother in the kitchen.
See,
but
I could have chose to stay upstairs, but I didn't. She couldn't do the stairs anymore, so her bedroom became downstairs in the living room. And I chose to sleep downstairs too.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think people didn't really understand that it wasn't like no one forced anybody. And in the beginning, when we first moved in here, you and Gina were sleeping in your bedroom on a bed. So it's not like that never happened. But no, I think the thing is people wanted to believe that it still boggles my mind, even watching the episode back, how it even looked, or people jumped to conclusions that, like, for some reason we just like shitted on you, Beth. Like, not just in the taking care of us, cooking, like in every way. Like, you worked and you were the only person that worked and took care of all of us, is what they made it seem like. Which is
Yeah, no,
because
because
we had
I
jobs, Keith and I.
I had a job, you had a job, Keith had a job,
Yeah.
and it we all had our part in taking care of the house, taking care of food and everything. It wasn't just me.
Right.
Yeah. And I know, like, that they were encouraging of that, which is kind of like, I should have known. Like, I feel like I should have known when it was starting to get encouraged to speak about things that never made it to the air anyway, because my interview that they put in the show was a bunch of things I said smushed together to make me sound stupid.
There was no natural cadence to half the things that were said. Even in Gina's, voiceover, her narration, you could hear the differences in voice, change in mid-sentence. And it's like, why? Why did you think you were
Or
going
they
to get away
make
with
her
that?
sound stupid.
Right.
They'll make her say something in the voiceover, but it doesn't match up with the scene that is playing out on the episode.
Right.
And so then she sounds stupid.
Yeah, and if you actually listen closely, you could tell the difference between sitting in a hotel room reading your scene versus actually doing the scene.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
That means somebody somewhere messed up, because in that case you want it to look like it's seamless.
Right.
In order for it to go together, right? But they pointed out some things to me, like just conversations with with you guys that did not match up, that were easily recognizable when you do a rewatch. Like when you come in with the food and she'd be like, "You got the food?" I'm
starving.
That kind of that kind of stuff. She just upped the drama a little bit. Okay, they're asking her I don't know how many times to repeat the same thing over and over again. But
or you see her laugh in a scene because she's like, that whole scene of you guys going to Texas for the first time, like, she's laughing because it was just so we were not camera people. I mean, Gina was good in front of a camera, but these cameras were a little bit different than the camera she was used to being in front of.
Right.
But like, I can see her smiling, and then I can see myself, and I'm like, oh my! But like, if you were an editor, wouldn't you want to edit that out? Because you just make us look stupid. Yeah. I don't know. To me, it doesn't.
But also, you are at the mercy of of the show's producers and the network themselves. Like, you're not just turning in what you think will fit. They'll be like, no, add more of this, bring more of this. Now, I want to know, like, how certain shows will do like the uncut, unseen, like, scenes, like bonus scenes, stuff you didn't get to see. I always wondered if they did that for this show, because even though I know you guys didn't see a lot of your real selves there was a lot of footage that was left on the cutting room floor. So so I want to know, what exactly did they have, or what was like the first version like, because I doubt this was the first version of the edit that they went with. You know what I'm saying? This has got to be like a second or third version or something, because they got this out quick.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it was a second or third version. I think because the producers were constantly talking to, I would assume, an executive producer who was the one approving everything. But when you see Gina interact with the doctor, this, just from the stuff that he says to her, you can see that he's being fed the storyline before Gina even became aware of what the storyline was going to be. Like, literally, Gina didn't know what the storyline was until she read that voiceover. And we got many calls in New Jersey of her being very upset, trying to tell us not to worry, like that there was stuff that was wrong. For an example, like our mental health stuff, the stuff about our dad, the stuff about my mom. Like, she was trying to prepare us because she felt so bad that this was not what we filmed. And it's like because I feel like they put her episode out because they were editing as they got the footage.
Yeah. Yeah.
They made her like I said before, they made her the anchor for this, and I want to know what the heck their mindset was. But Beth, when this experience was like first brought to your attention, like, because you remember those early videos Gina used to do, right? And when she had first brought it up to everyone that they were being, she was being contacted, and figured out that this was not a joke, how did you feel?
I thought it was, at that point, was a good opportunity. I thought, like most of the ones that you watch on that show actually go through and get what they're there for. But then, she started questioning herself of, is this really a good opportunity? Is this what I need to do? And then, like Keith said earlier, it's we were all just kind of like pushing her to do this. Is this, we all thought it was a good opportunity for her.
Yeah, I wish we saw the red flags in the beginning, but they made everybody, not just Gina, under the impression that this was going to be the best decision for her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every single producer,
even the camera crew,
they would say she's their favorite. And I have texts that are still on her phone that say, you were the favorite, like, you're my favorite. Like, and when Gina would question why they moved up her episode, because she wasn't supposed to air as early as it came out.
January.
The response was, oh, well, wait till your second episode and maybe you'll do this episode. And like, they kept wanting more out of her. And, I know that when it came out, she felt betrayed by them because it didn't fit that she's the favorite, because it's like, not that there should be a favorite. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, she believed truly that she was doing something that was going to help people and encourage people and inspire people, and it just backfired right in her face.
Right. Because then it was at that point that then they were saying about a second episode, and we're like, no, like, we can't go through that again, because the second episode doesn't go the way that they wanted to. She was her favorite because she gave them what they wanted, and that was the rating that they were looking for.
Yeah,
it's true. She was accommodating to their craziness.
Yeah. And I mean, for having all the panic and anxiety she did, I can't believe how much she bent to their will. Honestly, I don't know how the hell she did it. But, we've talked a little bit about her panic and anxiety, and Beth, as somebody who's seen it firsthand and been there to, guide her through it. What can you tell us about, her panic and anxiety and the things that it brought to the table and the things that it took away from the table?
Well, her panic and anxiety seemed like it became more and more, especially with what they were having her do. And she would try and fight with them about not doing something, and they would push her to do it anyway, which then later on in that evening led to bigger panic, bigger anxiety, and that, like, by time's end, it was like day after day after day of panic and anxiety. It's just, and it fed from her to me about having panic and anxiety, and then it would just, I wouldn't say blow up and fight, but it was just separate areas, you know?
Yeah. And we also talked a bit about the dynamic between your and Gina's relationship. And, there were some good times and there were some bad times. But that's the thing that people never were able to see because of the way they had you guys act together for the show. I mean, every couple goes through fights. You're just not in it if you're not fighting over something. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
constantly, things in a relationship that you're going to argue about, and it happens. But at the same time, they didn't show that. They didn't show the good stuff that you guys had together. They just kind of made you guys act, and it was extremely inauthentic for a lot of the episode, the dynamic between you two because of the acting and having to react, and you know what I mean, to those episodes.
A lot of it was having to react to her eating.
Right.
Because after that one episode with that one part with the bathing, like that was all there was about that. There was nothing else about bathing.
Right.
The rest of it was like, what are you eating? Like, and exercising. Like you got to do this, you got to eat that, you got to, but it's just it became harder on our relationship with what they were doing to not just her but to me as well.
Yeah. I feel like they were putting pressure on Gina, but I think it's fair to say that they were putting pressure on you too, because especially when you guys were in Texas, they were relying on you to make sure Gina was complying with what they needed. And it's like they didn't give neither one of you help, mental help. That's what I mean. Like, they didn't say, okay, they need to decompress, they need a break. No, you guys had to go every week for the next 3 weeks to try to get as much footage filmed so they can wrap the show.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're seeing these things, it's not a month later or 2 months later, it's days, and you guys are just dropping what you have to do and going. And you guys weren't even in Texas long enough for her to get medical insurance or for you to get medical insurance.
Right.
I remember that. You guys were, I know Gina was denied because she didn't live in Texas long enough. And it was like, you left your job in New Jersey to go to Texas. And it's like, how do you start up to get a job in Texas after you're giving them all your time with Gina to film a show, and then they're not letting, the finance part of it, like rent and things that they're claiming they would cover, or they're telling Gina they would cover, telling you both that they would cover it, and then not covering it, and then you guys being like, well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna survive once the show ends? And you know what I'm saying? If it was traumatic for Gina, I can only imagine how traumatic it was for you as well.
I was taking it for both of us as well. Like, she could only handle us so much before she would start her anxiety, start panicking, and go. I don't want to say go crazy, but fly off the handle from.
Mm-hmm.
But it was weight bearing for me to have to. It was heavy.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it was. It wasn't an easy thing, and regardless of the show, Gina's anxiety, Gina's panic was heavy for anybody that was close to her. And Keith knows that firsthand. Kyle knows it. You know it. I know it. My mom knows it. Gina had a very she was intense and could be intense, and she just was in such a constant state of not feeling good enough ever about herself. But it would be overshadowed by anger and anxiety and panic. And it would come out the wrong way. She didn't know how to explain her emotions. She just knew how to like be Gina. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
I mean, there's no other way you can describe it. I remember I remember arguments starting over sometimes the smallest things, or if somebody had a disagreement, first she would act like it was her fault, like everything was her fault. Then she would take it out on y'all, and then occasionally over the phone and be like, okay, I'm here for you, but I'm getting a headache just hearing this. You know what I'm saying? Because it started over. It would start over like, I don't know, somebody flipped the channel. Then she would have those good days where there would be nothing that would bother her because she actually, she would find something to occupy her time. Coloring books, playing Super Mario on her DS. Doing YouTube videos, exercising, dancing. She found things that balanced her out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that's just the perfect description of untreated mental health.
Mm-hmm.
She had been untreated for her mental health for such a long time because she had such irrational fears. And that's not an excuse to sometimes how she acted. I'm not trying to make an excuse for sometimes how she was.
When you guys went to Texas, I think it was the second time you went to the doctor. And
we lived in Texas at this point.
Right. So they were saying basically from the start that she was 609 pounds. Now we know that not to be true because she was under 600. Because she kept saying, am I going to be on this show? Because I'm not 600 pounds.
Babe, why did you just say the name of the show? Now you have to cut it out.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. I'll cut it out.
Okay.
No worries.
We got to do it.
Yeah,
cut it out.
No worries.
Although he left yours in with the episode today, Kyle.
Did I?
Yes, you did. I told you that.
Oh, I thought I took it out.
Oh, I don't
all right. So anyways, let me get back to what I was saying.
Okay.
So getting out of the van, you could see she had loose skin, and it was hanging out from under her shirt. Like she was trying to fix her shirt so her skin wasn't hanging out of her shirt at that point. And they had set her at 614 pounds. Now, I don't know if she had a gain or a loss by that time, because that was, like a week after you guys were in Texas? Not even?
There was times where we would go to the doctor, and then the next day we were going back to the doctor, and then somehow the weight fluctuated a lot. You know why? Because they would stand on the scales, or they would put their equipment on the scales just to get a bigger weight than what was actually there. Like, so with one day, there could not be any weight gain or weight loss.
Right.
Yeah, like how is that even humanly possible for her to lose 50 pounds in 24 hours? That's not possible.
Right, no. Exactly. So they said in that episode, it was Gina doing the read over, and she was saying how she worked so hard to lose the weight, to lose weight before that second appointment in the video, in the show. It was the second appointment. And then, like 2 seconds later, she's in the doctor's office, and he's like, oh, why didn't you do what you were supposed to do? And she was just like, I don't know. And you could tell at that point that was her realizing, like, in a way, like, this is not going down the way I think it's going down,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see her building anxiety in her face as she's turning red,
Yeah.
And that was just one of the many, signs of her anxiety. And I think being authentic as possible was her goal. And when they tried to tell her to be inauthentic or say certain things, that would put anxiety on her that was visibly noticeable.
Okay, really
Right.
quickly, I just need to read this because that's what I was just looking for. Not going to say the name of the producer, but Gina got a text a couple days after the show aired, and this producer said, "Are you okay?" And Gina said, "No, I'm not. Now I just saw what the network posted about me, how I disappointed the doctor. That's fucked up." Okay, this is Gina telling the producer this. And the producer says, "What do you mean, show me? But also, you did disappoint him. Remember when we had your appointment after the move and you only lost 18 pounds in 2 months and he was so mad at you? So is it just an episode summary? Why do you keep beating yourself up, Gina?" Um, first of
Classic
all,
deflection.
Yeah.
it wasn't 2 months. That's first of all. And second of all, 18 pounds is a lot of weight. That is a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Why would that be disappointing a medical doctor? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I know there were parts where the doctor wasn't very apologetic to Gina off camera once I guess he started to figure out what was happening. However, he's compliant with creating a false narrative of something that didn't happen. And to say that he should be disappointed after she lost, I think it was 18 pounds in a month.
It wasn't
That's,
even a month. It was like weeks.
but it doesn't matter. You should have a doctor that says that's a good amount of weight. Good, keep going. You're
Yeah.
doing great.
Right.
Not you're disappointed. I'm disappointed in you. Bad, shame on you.
And then make a joke about hitting yourself in the head with a hammer or something like that.
And then saying you have delusions.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me?
That was
Like,
the other
come
thing, is that he said, that she had delusions and that Beth was helping her to stay in these delusions. I'm sorry, I never saw that from Beth. I saw Beth tell it like it was, whether she wanted to hear it or not. You know what I mean?
And I think we brought this up too, and I did say this, and I'll say it right now. I think what got me very frustrated, and I apologize if this comes off in a negative way, Beth. Like, if you see me in episodes, if it comes off negative towards you, it's really not meant to. It's just reacting to what I'm seeing. Is that this entire time every person was calling my mom and I enablers. And it was frustrating because not one comment that I saw, because I didn't really look at them a lot, I will admit that, was saying that you enabled Gina. Okay? And listen, we can all admit that in some way, shape, or form, we enabled something in Gina's life, because living in a family that can have toxicity, and I'm calling us out. I'm calling me out. I'm calling my mom out. I'm being 100. Like, I know and I understand that there are dynamics in our family that are considered toxic. Because none of us knew, we didn't know how to act. It sounds very made up, but in certain situations, no one knew how to handle things properly or correctly. Everybody was just reacting to situations that were happening. And sometimes they were good responses, sometimes they were not so good, and sometimes they were a disaster. And that's not solely on one person. And I think that's or a couple people, it's everybody took a part. If you're gonna say, and then when the doctor says about that Beth is an enabler, it's like, where did this come from all of a sudden? Like, because in the beginning, in the first appointment, he was blaming my mom and I, or her family, and then he proceeds to say she shouldn't have moved to Texas. Well, I'm sorry, sir, but she had to follow a strict protocol. They wanted her there. She didn't want to move. We all know, Keith, Beth, and I, and my mom know that literally they were in her home, and she was fighting tooth and nail not to go, because I think maybe it was her fear, but maybe she was just realizing that it's not good. I don't know, but for whatever reason, Gina had a hesitation.
Okay, so, all right. Let me just process everything you just said for a sec. Okay. So, from my perspective, and from everything that has been said, it seems like their intention was setting you up to fail. Regardless of what the result was going to be, they were going to set you up to fail. Now, I'm not all that familiar with this show. Throughout the entire show's run, I think I've only watched like 3 episodes max, and that's only because number one, friend was on the show, or a friend of mine recommended it because they liked it that much. You know what I'm saying? That was pretty much it. One of my homies came over. We watched an episode before Gina's episode to give me an idea of what I was in for, and then that was it. Now, as far as what you guys have told me, there have been people that have had multiple episodes. Okay, there have been people that have had multiple episodes.
Thing.
And Beth mentioned earlier that she did overhear them talking about a possible second or maybe even third episode. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But because you guys knew that this was nothing but a bunch of falsehoods and they were putting you guys through the ringer like this, you didn't want to do it again, which honestly I believe was the smart choice. But let's just say that, because this was the start of the season, right?
Yeah,
I
think
don't know
she was
what the other
episode 5.
Right. Yeah. She was early episodes in that season. I don't know how many episodes there are per season for this particular show.
She was early though.
Yeah, she was very early, and like I said, when you would look up that season's number, you would see her as the main draw, as the thumbnail. She'd be sitting there, in what they told her to wear, and that was it. Now she's all over the place. Now, let's just say that there was a point where they maybe wanted to do something positive, because yeah, I want to give both sides the story here. But from my understanding, it seemed like they just set you up to fail on purpose. What the heck would be their end game anyway? Oh, we have the footage, we have their signatures on these contracts. We can do whatever the heck we want with these episodes. I wouldn't have believed it had these lawsuits not come up. You know what I'm saying? Plus, we know that reality shows are mostly fake anyway. So, but it's just crazy how some will get what they want and what they actually need, and others will just get the shaft. And like you said, the doctors will say something like, "Oh, 1 minute you're an enabler, you're delusional, you're this, you're that. I'm going to help you out." Because he gave her a second chance. He said, "Hey, okay, I'm going to give you more. I'm going to give you some more time. Next time you come back, then we'll talk, depending. But you have to follow my program, yada yada yada, right?" And then shortly after that, this happened, and then now the whole thing is shattered. So to me, maybe they had another idea, and then they were like, "Nah, this is better. This is this is better, because we probably already had too many positive episodes sometime down the line. It's like it's time for a negative one." I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, because there has been negative episodes. I'm not going to name them again. All the cast members that have been a part of this show, I respect them, and I won't say it, but there have been a few, and those few people have been vocal on socials about their bad experiences. But I think the thing that matters to me is the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating misinformation, and also the amount of people that I saw that watched this show for inspiration and motivation. You're or if they're thinking about having weight loss surgery, they're watching the wrong thing. If I was to watch this show not knowing anything about weight loss surgery and then go to my local program and realize how different it is,
Yep.
like, you're in for a rude awakening, because weight loss surgery is so mentally challenging as physically challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're not in a great supportive family. You don't have good support. And sometimes the doctors aren't supportive. But to watch this show and to be calling yourself like giving medical, it's not right. And it makes me so crazy, and it makes me feel like these people that watch it should just be like, they should know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Right.
is what we're trying to do.
So, Beth, one of the other things was they really drove home the life or death scenario that was Gina's life.
Right.
I feel that she was not, like at that point. I think we pushed her because we didn't want it to get to that point. But
Right.
had she had not done this, she would have been fine. She would have been fine. She was like fine after everything she had been through in life up to this point.
Fine is very loosely here.
It really is a very relative term, but like she was not on the verge of death. You know what I mean?
Right.
She was not on the verge of death the way they made it seem. And that was basically all I had for that. I was just very upset with the way they portrayed the scenario to be such a life or death scenario. And at that time, they pushed that, agenda so much that I think that's where I got on that train from. That it was a matter of life or death. And I at that moment, that's what I feared, I think that's what we all feared, honestly. I didn't think we ever saw it coming that this would be the start of her downfall.
Mm-hmm. So Beth, now that time has passed, like 2 years have passed since this whole thing, right?
Mhm.
But in certain places, like the show and Gina and you still pop up online and everything. Do you witness that, and have you seen, or has anybody, like, have you been recognized at all? Has anybody come up to you and it's like, hey, weren't you on that show? What was that like? Have you ever gotten that experience?
No, I do get people trying to add me in social media, or send me messages on social media, but I don't read them. I get rid of them because they're always like, I'm sorry about her passing, or I'm sorry that they put you through that so much on the show, blah blah blah. A lot of them at the time of ending the show was them saying, you need to get out, you need to get away. They were trying to push that, so there would be like 20 inbox messages of you need to, and then I just delete.
Man. How did that fare for you? Like, how did you feel about that?
She needed to know, so I talked to her about it, told her what was going on, because she would also be getting inbox messages. She had often taken her Facebook offline. Any of her social media she wouldn't touch for a while.
Yeah.
Because of messages that were coming in. I was a little different. I could just delete it and ignore. But now I don't get so many more of that. I'll get a few here and there, basically from like the other countries. that are just now seeing it, or you know, or rewatching it and then searching for whoever's in the episode.
Mm.
If there was one thing you could say to somebody who was about to embark on this journey, what would you tell them?
You're better off doing it by yourself. The angst and turmoil that they're going to put you through, everything that they're going to put you through is not worth it.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
I think that's really good advice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Definitely.
Beth, is there anything you wanted to talk about other than that, with your experience, with the show? Anything you want to get off your chest that's, kind of been sitting around and hasn't really been said?
No, I think we pretty much talked about everything that you could come up with.
Yeah. If anybody else has anything else?
Well, she basically just answered the question I was gonna. As far as like internet comments and the slander and the news and the all of that, because it just how does one really just you were able to just shrug it off for a while. Gina was online a lot because that was basically her life, right? So what would you do after after like you would talk to her about the messages, or those repeat messages would come up. Did it ever occur to you to say something to any of them, or did it just not matter at this point?
It didn't matter to me. I didn't have to say anything to them. I just delete the message. Most of the time I block them because sometimes they would come back again and just be like trying to get back into having a conversation. But no, I haven't felt the need to reply to any of them.
Okay, good.
I think the only thing I think we need to talk about, and whether you want to edit this out and add it to an episode, Keith, is the day that they told Gina she was going to get the surgery and then changed their mind and told her, no, we see the show going a different way. Now you're going to come and say you've gained weight and we're going to deny you for surgery on camera. What was that? How did that go down? Like, because I heard about it, but I wasn't there.
Well, that was that. Having to go there and think that she's actually going to get the surgery was a positive thing for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I not so much worried about me. It's what was health wise for her.
Yeah.
And then she gets weighed, and then you come back and he's sitting in the room and we're waiting for them. But when you look outside, this weight scale is out there. Come to find out that they're all standing on and putting equipment on to make it look like she can't have the surgery. So then they come back in the room and they're like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. Okay, but now you got to deal with what we're going to say next, what we're going to do next. And this, oh, you'll have a second episode. No.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember her saying, like, how they had, like, it started, she's saying that they were going to have the surgery, and we were questioning, like, well, you don't have insurance, like, how are they going to do it? Like, because they've been shady with paying things as it is, and she's like, they'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember her calling saying they need me to go to the hospital to say, like, that I'm not gonna have surgery. And I was like, what? Like, what is happening? And I remember her being so devastated and so done at that point. Like, I don't even think they could have dangled millions of dollars in front of her face, and she was not giving them a second episode at that point.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I think that's it for that. I think that was the only major thing we come across next, except the like the therapist appointment. Like, you guys had a full therapy appointment, but they only chose to air the woman say that you need to have alone time and Gina needs to have a day without getting help from you. Which, okay, that's fine, but they never touched on Gina's mental health at all. And that was the biggest thing that was holding her back from doing anything about her weight.
Her mental health, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't touch on that at all. So,
no, and that just, like, why even put a therapist in there if they're not going to touch on not just Gina's, but anybody's.
Yeah,
exactly. That's why I said in a previous episode, I thought you and her should have had your own therapy sessions.
Right.
With what you guys are dealing with, because you guys were dealing with a lot of stuff on top of, the day-to-day. You were also dealing with all the production nonsense,
right.
And also realizing that it wasn't going down the way that it really was,
I still just don't understand how people could watch this and view it as real. Like, I just don't understand where people think we live in a world where this type of behavior and this way is a real way of life. Like, looking at, like, just with how she and Gina interacted with the doctor, how Gina interacted with the therapy, how Gina interacted just with the voiceover. Like, I don't understand how people can view how that went down as a real thing. I don't, it blows my mind how many people are like, we're so angry. And not at the show. They were angry at Gina. They were pissed at Gina, said she was boring, pissed at us. Like you said too, Beth, like, people wanted you to run away. Run, Beth, run was trending on Twitter. Like, I don't they didn't give her a chance. And like Kyle said, they set her up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, I think I think there are times and there are people that have these moments where you can't separate they can't separate a fabricated reality from what's actually happening. Like, or I'll give you a better example from an actual drama. When Game of Thrones came out, right? Game of Thrones, dope show, except for the last season.
Never
saw it.
But so one of the actors in particular, she played the villain Cersei, right? She was so good at playing her character. She was one of the main villains of the show, right?
Uh-huh.
She was so good at playing her character that there was reports saying that people, when she would come out of her house, people would look at her like, "Why'd you do that? What's going on with you? I hate you." Blah, blah, blah. They loved her so much as the villain that they could not separate the character from the actor, right? And because reality TV shows are so popular, so cheap to make, so easy to just make up whatever scenario you want. I mean, come on. How many of us watch something like, I don't know, Pimp My Ride, Punk'd? I don't want to count Jackass because that all looked like it hurt, regardless. But stuff like that, and thought that was real, right? Thought that was real for years. Flavor of Love was one of my favorite shows for the longest time, right? Thought that was real. Keeping Up with the Kardashians, thought all of that was real, right?
But those people are celebrities, like the Kardashians, Flavor Flav. Like, he's a celebrity. We're not celebrities. We're real people put
I know, and they are, and they are too. But because they are, and they're not like, this isn't a drama or anything. People honestly think reality TV show, and that's the key word, reality. They get that mixed up with real life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's fabricated. It's pseudo reality. It ain't real.
Yeah, I understand, but I just still don't understand.
Yeah, I know.
I don't.
I used to I used to make videos about this myself. Like I made a whole thing on why I didn't dislike reality television, going into it, and then this happened. So that's just my theory. I don't know. I can't explain it, but the reality TV show phenomenon is not going anywhere because it's easy to make. It's cheap.
A majority of them get like represented by agents, and they're making money.
What's another popular one? The Housewives of insert wherever.
Yeah. Jersey Shore.
Yeah, Jersey Shore. Jersey Shore. When I met Gina, Jersey Shore was just popping off, right? So that's all. Because I didn't have any people, any representation in Jersey, right? I didn't have no family in Jersey until I met y'all. So I was like, part of me thought that might have been what the attitudes were like, and then I would watch it with you guys, and then you would hate. Like, I think y'all would hate watch it. Like, it's like, I can't believe this is what people think Jersey's actually like.
That's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother show.
Yeah,
we don't got enough time for that.
That's true.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else? Anyone? Beth, anything you want to add? Kyle, Keith?
No, I think I'm good.
I think we're good. We're good.
Comment, rate, subscribe, share.
True.
Did you say comment, rate?
Rate. I said rate.
I know, but what are people gonna rate?
Rate. Like. There you go. It's like.
Yeah.
Comment, like, subscribe, share.
Please
share.
don't. I don't want to hear what anyone's rating is. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, at the end of the day,
haven't had a rating system in years.
At the end of the day, it's just important that we get this story out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To as many people as possible. So yes, please share this wherever you can.
Yeah, with the hashtag 600-pound lies.
600-pound lies, absolutely.
Yes.
Anyways, that's about all for this one. So I want to thank you, Beth, for coming and talking and kind of helping us to debunk some of this stuff behind the scenes.
My pleasure.
Kyle, thank you as well. And of course, my lovely wife, Allie, thank you as well. I think that's going to be it. So we will see you guys in the next episode. Stay tuned.